Hello and welcome everyone, I'm C.S.Gilmore and this is Powerwash Simulator. So I've actually not been recording for most of a week now. Took a bit of a break. Perfect timing, as you can see. I've encountered a few issues with my private jet. That's what comes from flying too close to the sun, or in this case, a volcano and the ocean. After your application and discretion with my excavation drill, I know you're exactly who I want on the job. As you'll discover, my jet is not without its idiosyncrasies. I trust you to be your usual discreet self in return for an excellent rate. Blake. Here's what's going to be on here that would count as an idiosyncrasy. Also, I find it interesting that, what is that thing? A ray gun? Strange. Oh, I like that they actually put, drains in the floor. That's kind of a nice touch. But yeah, as I was saying, I have been away for a bit from recording in general. Not to say I haven't been gaming. I've been gaming a bit. I got back into playing Satisfactory, and I'll probably do a recording of showing some updates on that, because I've gotten to, I think, a bit past the point where I was back in some years ago when I did some live streams of it. Like, I've gotten up to tier 4 completed, and now I'm just working on building up everything to get the space elevator done so I can get up to tier 5 and 6 and whatnot. You know, the usual grinds of Satisfactory. But I've been having a lot of fun with that, re-exploring the world now that it's in version 1.1. It's nice to see it. What this is supposed to be? What is this thing supposed to be? Anyway, another thing I was saying, I actually am kind of like the whole thing about being too close to a volcano and then crashing in the ocean, or whatever it was. I think that's what happened to this thing. Kind of makes sense, because if you get too close to a volcano while flying, say, there's a lot of soot and ash in the air. There's a lot of just general pollutants, in fact, in the air, and that can cause your engines to, not work right, which would in turn result in probably a crash landing. So it kind of all fits and makes sense there. Yeah, I like the look of this thing. Like, it's a cool design, but maybe we'll get into that later. The real subject I was thinking of, world static wick, interesting. The real subject I was really thinking of talking about today has to do with my taking a break for a bit, and that's because I was thinking. That got me thinking. I should talk a bit about work-life balances. Like, I don't really do this as a job, but I do it. I do record a lot, given how many videos I put out, and I'm working on some improvements, working on some naming convention changes, and I've been trying to improve the quality of the videos to be like 60 frames per second instead of the usual 30, which is normally put out by my systems. Otherwise, that sort of deal. I'm working on making those sorts of little changes that'll hopefully help with quality of life. And I'm also, you notice probably, if you've been watching recently, that a lot of my videos have had not a large selection of thumbnails. So, like, if there's more than one video in a series, they all use the same thumbnail. Well, someone pointed out that it does make it kind of difficult to tell, like, which video is which, and, like, to differentiate in, hey, well, where was I at before, that sort of deal. It doesn't help in a lot of ways for finding say whatever video you're actually looking for. So I am working on changing up thumbnails for each video. Something I used to do, I kind of got out of the habit during my long break and all that. Yeah, I'm kind of working on getting back into it. Taking a bit of time for that. I'm trying to, think of funny interesting thumbnail designs, because I do like to have a little, there are certain looks and humor I like to kind of slip in there if I can. At least even if it is just a little chuckle on my end. If I find it funny, then yeah, that's kind of what I'm aiming for. But the reason I want to talk work-life balance is because with that release schedule, it can get easy to burn out. Doing a recording probably every night or almost every night, maybe more than one recording each of some of those nights. You can actually get some burnout, even though, yeah, you might be thinking, well, how do you get burnout? You're playing games, and even as I said, I played games even when I wasn't recording. But there's definitely a difference between recording while playing a game and just playing a game. For example, some of you may also know, I tend to record videos anywhere between 20 days to a month in advance of their actual release. Most of the time. And that tends to create a weird anxiety where if I'm not ahead, I worry that I'm going to fall behind and not be able to keep up with the release date. Because, what if I end up not recording for a while, and then I wouldn't be able to keep up with the release date. And yeah, I don't get paid to do this. It's just something I do as a hobby for fun right now. And all that. But it still takes time and effort to put out a video, even without a budget. I imagine you're keen to learn some of the specifications of Jet. Actually, am. But yeah, it can be difficult to keep up with sometimes, and I develop that kind of anxiety. As it's you, I'll divulge. Interesting. Because, yeah, I'll feel like, oh man, I have to record. And if I'm recording, I feel like I have to make X amount of progress in the game each recording. I feel like I have to reveal something new. That's why a lot of game series I've done, like a number of them, just die off and never actually finish the game. Loop Hero, for example. Because it required so much insane grinding. It took so much time, I couldn't keep up with my release schedule without just having grind session episodes. Or just without trying to squeeze in enough time to keep up with recording something else while making some progress in the game, and it steals away the fun of playing the game. I hope I'm making sense with all that. I'm not always the best at speaking while I do some of these other things. My brain sometimes occasionally will skip something, or I forget about what subject I'm on, little details like that, because I'm so focused on what I'm trying to do, in this case, cleaning. But, yeah, I hope that makes sense. So sometimes it's important to, though, just like, whether it's a hobby or anything else, or actual work, whether you're getting paid or not, it can be important to just sometimes take a break, take a vacation from it. And for me, that was what I just did. I was recording all that. I took a break from recording. I just didn't record any videos for a while. And I was far enough ahead with everything. I was able to push back the anxiety of not recording for a bit. But also, it was nice because I was able to just play a game to have fun with it. Not have to worry about talking, bring up anything interesting about it, not discuss anything. Like, I don't have to talk to anyone, as it were. Even though I'm kind of just talking to a camera here right now, even. Like, the idea is that you speak as if you're talking to, well, you guys who are hearing this eventually, if anyone actually is hearing this. You don't know if anyone's going to hear it, but if someone is, you want to be addressed to them. You don't want to just be blabbering on to the wind, as it were, and sounding like you're excluding people or anything like that. Which may not make sense to everyone, but like, there's a certain air of connection that comes with the recordings that I don't have to worry about when I'm just playing to play. Or an air of inclusion, I guess would be the right word. Trying to include people. I'm trying to, because when I'm recording this, I'm trying to include you in this conversation in a way. Include you in the gameplay. And to give an experience of sorts. Whether it's like, hey, maybe you don't have time to play this game yourself, but you can watch and listen and experience it through me. And that's, I think a lot of creators of this sort of thing probably feel similarly in that regard. So hopefully more of them are getting paid than I am and whatnot, because, especially those that are doing a really good job, I hope that they are getting paid enough to be able to do it as a job, not just as a working hobby. Although this jet looks superficially like any other, it's far from it. Superficially has some interesting connotations here, but its fuselage is made from a graphene matrix that is lighter than air but stronger than steel. Okay, you're making up funny words there, I think. Not only can it reach speeds of over 888 miles per hour, but it's also technically the world's largest pencil. Oh, graphite. Pretty sure graphite is not lighter than air, and I feel like it would be extremely fragile for this sort of setup if it was. Also, you'd have to have parts that were not lighter than air in order to keep your plane from, blowing away. A plane would have to have actual mass to it, and weight and heft and all that, and just to not become a plaything of the winds. Which would be a really bad thing to be while you're, say, trying not to crash into something. Anyway, work-life balance. So this doesn't just apply to, whatever recording my hobby. This can apply to a lot of things in life, which is why I wanted to talk about it. Because it's not just, like, whether you're doing anything like this or not doesn't matter. It can be, this is something that you can apply to day-to-day life. It can be very important to just take a break sometimes from everything. I'll often, for example, reading, I'll often binge read a pile of books, like usually omnibuses and junk like that, or just, a bunch of little books even. I'll binge read a ton. But then I get to a point where suddenly I can't process what I'm reading as well. My brain starts shutting down, as it were, if I go and read a ton all in a short time period. It gets to a period where, and this isn't like, 2 days later I can't read anymore. It's like, okay, I've been reading 6 books over the last month or so, and now my brain is going, word processing hard. I'm gonna go take a nap instead. That sort of thing. And similarly with this sort of deal, you get tired. Your brain gets tired. You get tired of thinking, how do I speak to someone who isn't actually present at the time of my speaking? Things like that. Or for me, even also it's ad-libbing it on the spot because I don't use a script. Sometimes, especially with things like where I'm speaking on a subject like this, I'll think about the subject for a bit ahead of time, kind of prepare a little bit in my head, perhaps, but I don't write anything down. And I don't have a word-for-word scripts. I don't do that sort of thing. It's not how I present my content. It's not how I share my content. I have no interest in it. I'd sound so fake reading from a script. For me, it wouldn't be genuine. Kind of like if I knew a game inside out and then was pretending to be surprised by it. It wouldn't be real. Like, now, hey, I just played Control through. I've played Control before, and there were some areas where I was surprised by it. But that was, to be fair, I hadn't played it in years, and I had forgotten things, or only remembered them as it already been partway through things. Stuff like that. That's a little different. That's more of a, okay, I've played it before, and then I'm rediscovering it, where I had forgotten something previously. And for me, that's still genuine, because, I'm actually really going, oh, wait, yeah, this was here, there was something about this. Oh, yeah, it was this. Something like that. Rather than going, oh, yeah, no, I totally don't know that there's a monster about to jump out and eat my face if I go around this corner unprepared. Oh, wow, it got me. Like, no. I'm not gonna... No. Anyway, I'm getting off subject here. So anyway, as I was saying before, like, recording can be stressful for me, because I have this pressure to record, like, every night or almost every day, if possible, keep up with my release schedule. And I could change up my release schedule, of course, but even that feels like I don't want to change up my release schedule. Say, Dirt Finder, if you can discreetly find your way over the mansion as soon as is humanly possible, I'd sure appreciate it. Oh, good, Mayor. Someone else do something too? The laser gun situated under the fuselage uses a state-of-the-art crystalline compound to create an energy feedback loop that instantly plasmatizes the air. Okay, so it's a plasma gun. Okay. Consequently, its beam reaches upwards of 3 million degrees Fahrenheit on a hot day. I don't think it would matter if it was a hot day or not with something like that. If it's plasmatizing the air is plasma, which, in case you don't know, is kind of an energy state between how do I describe it? Ugh. It doesn't quite fall solidly under, like, liquid, solid, gas. Or it's very quickly... If I remember right, there's been some recent discussion on it being actually a separate state of matter. But either way, it's super hot. You don't touch. You probably can't even get close to touching it, because you'd be burning up before you got that far. Yeah, plasma, in case you aren't aware, is the sun. Like, for example, that is a giant ball of plasma. It's a giant ball of plasma that is self-perpetuating in some form. I don't know all the specifics, but, it's been burning non-stop for thousands, if not millions of years. And it has a lot more to go. Now, suns do tend to burn out eventually, but even then they go out, and then a bunch of material flies around and usually reforms into another star somewhere, if not in the same spot, then somewhere else, and yeah, perpetual continuation of matter moving along. And matter is neither created nor destroyed; it just moves around and changes. Even with the sun, it's going somewhere. And it gives off energy as the matter changes and breaks down, but then that energy is probably either replaced by other energy coming in from elsewhere or from matter being brought in from other sources, and or the amount of energy to the amount of matter to energy ratio gets interesting. Anyway, I'm getting distracted once again. Weird sciencey stuff that I am probably not explaining very well because it's a little above my pay grade as far as specialties go. I do love my science materials, but I'm not a scientist. It is not my job to know the ins and outs of fusion reaction, plasma matter, and etc. and so forth. Heat dispensary, energy dispersion. I know enough to kind of get an idea, at least in my own head, on how some of that functions and works, and how varieties in how it might need how accurate certain theories are in regards to it. But I myself am no scientist. Anyway, I feel like I keep getting distracted from the subject and not making nearly as much progress on it as I really wanted to initially. I hope you don't mind my rambles on some of that, and I hope I'm not talking in circles too much for some of you. In regards to it, probably someone out there going, get to the point! But it's kind of a process in itself that I'm explaining, so the point is the process, if that makes sense. Anyway. So yeah, stress management, healthy stress management at that, can be very important, and sometimes that means just take a step back, even if it's for just a little bit. Reevaluate. Maybe that's why some people will end up in midlife crisis type situations, because they spend a long time doing their daily grind. They don't usually they're not going anywhere with it, and they feel that perhaps they feel like they're not making significant progress in their life. That things have ground to a cycle that they're no longer happy with, and then they're reevaluating, and usually they try something completely different. Usually, we hear the stories, of course, of the times where it ends up being a less than wise decision change up. But there are plenty of ways to make perfectly healthy midlife crisis decisions as well. And I'm like, what I'm talking about here will hopefully help with someone if you ever experience that yourself. Because sometimes, the trick is, don't let it build to the point where you're just like, man, I have to drop everything that I've currently got going on in order to reinvent the wheel of my life and reconsider my existence and how I do everything. There's better ways to do it. Okay, what was dirty here? Something flashed for me. Oh, where did it? There it is. Wing mount. Okay, wing mount. All right. There we go. I think that laser is done. So yeah, break things up into manageable chunks. For example, with the getting a bit tired with some of the recordings, all that, I could have just pressed on, forced myself to go through it, and it will have resulted in burnout, where I eventually am just like, I don't enjoy this anymore, I don't want to do it anymore, and possibly me just quitting for a prolonged period of time, if not entirely. And then, everything I've worked on here kind of just goes to waste in a lot of ways. But sometimes that's what people feel they need to do in order to regain some sense of, actual enjoyment from their day-to-day life. But by taking a break, stepping back, it gave myself a chance to just relax, do things purely for fun, not because I have to, but because I wanted to. And that's where I think a lot of it comes down to also is, recording, often doing the daily releases, all that, it gets very easy. And this doesn't just apply to what I'm doing. This can apply to like anything in life. A lot of the time, our brains get kind to a I need to do this. I need to do that. Um, and having faced addiction in my own life, it can have some very weird similarities, perhaps even disturbingly so. Of you feel like a compulsory need to do a thing, and when you feel like you have to do it, it gets very easy to eventually hate doing it. And I think that's part of also builds into that whole midlife crisis, people just dropping everything and changing their life around. It's their way of breaking that cycle. And but if you do it healthily, you can work with things without having to reinvent yourself from the ground up. Obviously, going that fast through the air generates a lot of heat. I mean, that makes sense, but I feel like, if I remember, graphite's pretty good at heat dispersion. Could be remembering wrong. I'm not a huge one on that one. Once landed, it's possible to cook a beef bourguignon, I don't know how to pronounce that word, on its wings in less than 3 minutes. Sounds tasty. And once I'm done cleaning it, you'll be able to cook one of those on there without getting food poisoning problem. Yes. But yeah. So, but if you manage your stress and everything, you avoid burnout. You don't really have to get to that point where you feel you have to just drop everything and start over somewhere else. And this can apply to work, daily jobs, all sorts of things. Family life, all of that. It has application there. Anti-gravity booster. Yeah. Interesting. Alright, acquiring. Where's this form of gravity booster? There. Okay, I just gotta get some angles on this. I'm seeing now. Almost done. Where's the spot I'm missing? But yeah, a lot of it ties into, in my opinion anyway, that whole need versus want. I feel I need to record regularly, maintain a certain schedule on releases and everything, and that means I have to record a lot, I have to release a lot of videos, I have to do the prep work for those videos in a time frame. It can be challenging and stressful. So, and we do that a lot in life of, I need to get 8 hours of sleep. I need to eat this or that, or else my day is ruined. I need to do something today at this time, in this time frame, or else. And it's very easy to fall into that trap mentally. But if you recognize you're doing it, you can stop yourself usually and go, wait, I'm doing that. I don't want to do that. That's going to result in me being unhappy. It's going to result in more stress. It's not going to help the situation. So if you can change that in your mind from I need to I want to, you'll get a lot more enjoyment out of whatever your day to day is. Recording these things, like, ultimately, I do this not because I have to. I don't have to record any videos at all. Like I've mentioned, I don't get paid to do this. It's not a job for me. This is a hobby. I don't have to. Even if I was getting paid to do it, like, there's a lot of people on YouTube that don't record and release a video every single day. Of course, I say every single day. I don't do Sundays, but I do doubles on Saturdays. Unless I accidentally forget to. And I'm usually pretty good about that. But, yeah. I don't have to. really for my livelihood or anything like that. But even if I was getting paid and was getting some livelihood out of it, I still really have to record every single day and release every single day. It's not required. That's just a goal I've set myself. And by remembering that and putting it as, and the reason I have set that goal for myself is because I want to. I want to try it. I want to see if I can do it. And I want to go do more with that sort of thing. And that helps me not be so stressed about it because I'm not feeling like, oh man, if I don't, I have failed at life or anything like that. I have failed at my goal and now my day is ruined. No, it's not because I don't have to. I want to, but I can live with, wanting something and not getting it. Because sometimes you don't always get what you want. That I can live with. Much more so. That's why I was missing the spot. It was underneath the lip. Aha. But yeah, I want. That can be important for you guys in your own lives. Think about your own life. What are some of your day-to-day things that you do all the time, feeling whether you feel it's a compulsory thing you have to do, or whether it's a thing you want to do, and think about that, and then think, okay, is it something I really need to do and have to do, or is it something that I'll live if it doesn't happen? Just thinking about that can help you, whether it's still something you still need to do in a lot of ways, can help reduce the stress of such things. Because it becomes less of a, oh man, if I don't, I'm in so much trouble, and more of a, all right, well, I may not like doing it, but I do need to do it, but I don't have to force myself to do it this split second or within a certain time frame. I can take my time on it, take it one step at a time, and it'll be way better for me overall. Okay, so it's probably the same deal on this jet nozzle. I'm not sure why this cannon can't go in certain spots. It's a little weird. There we go. So we're done with that. We got through that. I think that's most of this plane already. Landing gear. I think it's time to get on the roof. And check up here. Of course, there are some areas where you have to take some things into account too, I need to finish cleaning this plane in order to beat this level. Sure, that is an undeniable, I have to do it if I want to actually beat the level. Do I have to beat the level? Not really. But there are things like that affect it. And I can take my time doing that. I don't have to be done faster or slower than otherwise. I've got pretty lateral this side, aren't I? This thing is an odd angle. Alright, I feel like I got a little distracted with examples there. But I hope that makes sense to you guys of the difference between a want and a need mindset. Because it can make a huge difference in a lot of your day-to-day issues. I mean, even that sort of thing has also helped me even just with some of my autistic aspects. I don't really need to do something. But I feel like I should, or I want to do certain things, but I don't. Once again, I don't have to. Oh, that's a clever design there. Some of that, all right. I don't have to do some of the stuff that I feel like I should. I used to be way more OCD as a kid. When I was growing up, I was extremely OCD and some, and like many OCD people, it manifested in some strange ways at times, from like washing my hands too much to like just what caused me stress, what irked me, and what didn't. And I started working on that by developing like I actually kind of rewrote certain parts of my brain with a lot of meditation, thought, and like feeling out which part of my mind got kind of how to describe it. Like you can kind of feel like when I get angry, for example, I can feel a lot more pressure towards the front portion of my head and my brain, particularly my frontal lobe. I actually feel some additional pressure in that area. So it helps me, and that helps me recognize when I'm getting angry about something. And I know when that happens, I'm not going to be able to think as clearly. I'm not going to be able to do things, as well. I'm not going to be able to think as clearly in certain ways or function in certain ways. But even recognizing that it's happening, I can also take a step back and go, okay, breathe, calm down, focus on on a different way, change things. And can help me avoid being angry in the first place. It can also help me work through a problem that is frustrating, because I can realize, oh, I am getting frustrated by this. And then take a step back and thinking, how can I not get frustrated by it? How can I take a breather? How can I look at this in a slightly different way that helps me not be frustrated from it? And unfortunately, there's a lot of this that I can say, and it may or may not help you in your own situation, because I'm not you, and you're not me. And how you think on things, how your brain processes things, is probably a bit different. And maybe it is a lot harder for you to stop and recognize something in yourself, or maybe it's harder for you to admit something to yourself. Or maybe it's really easy to admit something to yourself, but really hard to make that stop that you need to in order to change something. All right, we haven't kind of all clear yet. What area am I missing? I something on the bottom of this? No? Where are we missing on this plane? So these little doohickeys? Okay, we're going to have to do a once over of this plane and see what weird little bit I missed. There's one sensor. All right, done. Just wiring. There we go. Yeah, for me, I've learned over the years of having been extremely OCD for a while, and also having various autistic characteristics. I learned to recognize when I was having those moments, and the feeling I got from those, like the feeling I had during those moments, and I learned how to work around, as it were. How to go, okay, I am feeling this way, but I don't need to. Wing wirings, vortex generator. Vortex generator. Which one is the vortex generator? That feels like something on the list. No, 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 no. Not there, not there. Fuselage wirings. There we go. That's part of it. Vortex generator. So vortex generator, and where is it? So there's a degree of kind of like self-mastery you have to work on in order to be able to really apply some of this. The recognizing, oh, I am doing this to myself. See, this applies to a lot of compulsionary stuff. of going, why am I getting upset about this? Why does this being the wrong color, or like, why is this being out of order bother me? You have to not just, you have to recognize, why is that bothering me? And not only recognize it, but then ask yourself why. And you have to work out that why. And as you do, it can help you to go from the why into, how do I then fix it in a way that it doesn't bother me, without necessarily being oh, I have to fix it. Like, I have to undo this. I have to change this. I have to say it a certain way. And instead going, why is it bothering me? And weird thing for me was, I had to ask myself, does it matter? Why do I care? Do I need to care? That was part of it. I had to ask myself about that. And do I still do some things compulsively? Yeah. But I can also still recognize it, and sometimes then just go, all right, wait, I'm being dumb. I need to stop. I need to step back. I need to take a breath. And I don't have to do this. Where is this spot? All right. Anti-gravity panel. What is a vortex generator? Where is it on this jet? Yeah, I feel like I probably haven't explained all this stuff very well, and I hope it makes some sense in a way that it will help someone out there who's in a similar situation for me than I was or have been. But that's why I took about a week off from some of this, was just to stop and go, I don't have to record every day. I don't, as one of those things. I don't have to record. I don't have to release a video every single day. And that helped me stop for a bit and go, all right, reset myself and get back to work now. When, like, right now, I'm back to recording. But I'm way less stressed about it than I might have been previously. How that stress had been building up with, well, okay, how do I progress with certain things in a way that matters? Another exemplary example of power washing. I admit I was skeptical of your prospects of cleaning stains created at such high temperatures. Once again, you've exceeded my expectations, so I'm exceeding yours. Feel free to use this hanger for any larger, odd jobs that you may pick up in the future. Alright, so we're going to be seeing this hanger again. I have a suspicion. You know, I didn't look around and see where the gnome might be. Oh well. Clean the frolic boat. What boat? I'm okay. Some sort of boat. What time is it? Oh, I've been going for what, half an hour-ish? Let's keep going. The dirt finder. Are you as memorized by the principle of Archimedes as I am? There is barely a day goes by when I don't undertake some kind of minor water displacement experiment. Today I'm seeing what happens when I pack all my worldly goods onto my frolic boat and take it for a trip downriver someplace. I've granted you full access to my property to assist the clean, which will be rescinded following the removal of the final fleck. I'd appreciate it if we kept this between ourselves. I don't want anyone to get the ridiculous idea that I'm skipping town. The mayor. Yeah, you're just going to load all of your earthly possessions onto a boat for no other reason than to test out traveling. Wow. Is this a private driveway or is this actual road? Because this is a road through town. Wow. He literally has this place shut down. If it's a private driveway, like a drive-through, turn-through driveway or something, okay, that makes more sense to be able to do that. Hey, it's Harper. What on earth's going on in Buckingham? I don't know what is going on in Buckingham. What do you mean? Elaborate. Just read a piece in Real News Now. The town with no cats. Oh wait, is this a Muckingham? There were Muckingham Files. That was like some of the DLC stuff. I think it was some of the free DLC. Is there really not a single cat left? Okay, so maybe there's some weird mystery tied into some of the DLC cleaning jobs. They're like the free handout DLCs. Also, speaking of cats, hello, Captain Kitty. Who's a good Captain Kitty? Probably not you, because you were probably pushing someone off the boat or several items. Because cat. Also, well, yeah, there are some cats that actually do like water. It's a weird thing that some people like. It's a weird thing that like cats hate water is a weird idea that is very popular. But really, there are some cats that don't care, or and even a few that even love water. Sure, a lot of cats may not like water, but also so that's just the delivery of said water. Let's face it. I mean, how many cats are being introduced by water by being spritzed in the face for doing something they aren't supposed to do? But you don't see them running in fear from the water bowl either, unless maybe they've got rabies or something. But then you got a whole other problem. Then you got a whole different problem on your hands. And at that point, well, where do I even start on that one? If your cat's gotten to the point of rabies that it doesn't like water, you probably have rabies too now. Congratulations, go get shots. I also read in the Daily Opinion that the mayor's water pipeline is just the tip of the iceberg. Oh, good. What else was the mayor doing? It's what he's doing with all that water that's the dodgy bit. That is actually a good question. What is the mayor doing with the pipeline? When they're talking about pipelines, yeah, no, that makes sense. Usually, when there's talk of pipelines, it's to do with oil, but yeah, now I think about it, all the instances we've had here have been water related. What is the mayor doing with all this water that has led to this whole scenario with the pipelines and the farm and the monks who farm egging his place and everything else? Anyway, so still want to talk about this whole needs versus want mind, like altering your mindset and moving on from things that you may feel you have to do before they burn you out. Because even like OCD stuff, like that tends to burn you out over time. You get to a point where you're driving yourself crazy. And that kind of was where I was at with my OCD. At times, I was like, man, I don't want to have this problem. It's driving me crazy. And also, my hands were getting, issues from being washed too much. That still happens sometimes, especially in winter when the air's dry. But, I mean, there was that. That also depends on where you live and how dry the air is, or how dry the year is in general. But yeah, lots of things go into that. But yeah, I was having issues with that, and I had to stop. And that's part of why I stopped and was reevaluating myself and take a deep dive into my own psyche on why am I doing this, and why do I feel like I need to do it, and do I really need to do it? And in my case, I got over some of that by realizing a lot of it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually matter, and I don't really have to do it. Like, if I don't do it, the world's not going to end. My day is not going to come to an end just because I didn't wash my hands 16 times after I touched something. Okay, that was probably more extreme setup there. I don't usually wash my hands that much, like at least in one go, just and whatnot. But you get my drift, I hope. So And yeah, this really does tie in with the whole work-life balance because it has a lot of similarities. But it required that similar. Once again, I had to reevaluate myself. I had to stop and go, why am I doing this? Do I need to keep doing it? Rumor has it, he's funneling the water to some billionaire guy running an illicit mining rig. Why would you need a ton of water for a mining rig? Can't be true, can it? And is it related to the missing cats? I have concerns and questions. How would it involve cats? What kind of mining are they doing? Are they using a water drill? A water pressure drill? I have that theory and design there is leaving me with way more questions than answers. All right. Anyway, focus. So yeah, I had to stop and think about it, but by realizing those things about myself and giving that deep dive into it myself, it helped me be less OCD about it. It helped me have less compulsion about it, and be able to stop and recognize when I was having those moments, and to step back and make myself stop, to make myself reevaluate until it stopped being quite so OCD. Well, some cats been here. Perhaps the certain mayor's cat that he's been looking for. But that helped me be less OCD and generally be more of a functioning adult in my day-to-day life and not drive myself crazy. Similarly, looking at this and going, I don't have to record every single day. Help me, but I still want to, keep up that schedule. I want to record more and keep releasing videos. Helps me not be as stressed about it, not feel like I have to do this and if I miss a day, my day is ruined. No, I can take a day off and not stress about it nearly so much. Actually have a real day off and not try to take a day off. It's a difference between taking a day off and trying to take a day off, but not really getting the benefit out of taking the day off because I'm too busy stressing about taking the day off. And I feel like that's something that can happen with a lot of things. Even my daily work, it can be like, oh man, I need to get X done within this time frame. But having worked in my current job for as many years as I have, which is actually getting up there, I've worked in my same job. Well, my job's changed a bit over the years, on and off, as things have developed and as the business has grown and changed, needs have changed. But I've worked for the same employer and done moderately the same thing in a lot of cases for it's been 8 years, almost 8 years, because we moved out here because my son is almost 8. The worst thing is that it only starts happening once I finally split town. Okay. Yeah, so you can't report on it. Or what's the report? I can't remember. Or at least it would be harder for him to look into it since he seems to be interested. But although mustn't grumble, the desert dig I'm working on is amazing. You should come visit. Oh, good. Or if that's another thing we can do at some point, or if it's a DLC theme. I'm curious about that. Power washing a bunch of relics and bones in the desert, because that would be a horrible thing to actually do, really, because you break a lot of those things. But I could totally see that being a funny thing they do in this game. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I've been doing the same thing for years, or moderately the same thing, and a lot of the days that can get kind of repetitive and very stressful. I spend a large amount of my time spending spreadsheets and working on things on spreadsheets. And when I'm done working on one thing, I usually have to do it for another one of the stores, or I have to work on it. Like I work through some things, and all right, start on over from the other side now for that because now I've worked on this store, now I've gotten this store done, and I need to go back to working on this store's thing. And every week there's new pre-orders that need to be looked at, and info noted down, which vendors are carrying it, all that. That can get into a situation where I risk burnout because it's boring. And also, you can get tired doing it. Like your brain, like I mentioned with reading, after a while, my brain can just shut down and be like, I'm not processing info. I've worked out ways to get around some of that. A lot of that is, I'll be like, okay, I need to get inventory taken care of for this thing to make sure they have these items or don't actually have the, like, make sure they really don't have these items so I can know what I need to reorder. And sometimes I will break things up a bit by just taking a quick stretch. I'll get out of my office, I'll walk out into the store itself and just look at the shelves and reevaluate, or I'll do a bit of the inventory check myself. And it may not always be the best use of my time for progress, but ultimately it ends up being better use of my time because if I'm just staring at the spreadsheet all the time, my brain starts shutting down and I don't get that progress I need out of it because I'll end up going over the same thing or just staring at this line of data and not really processing it, not making any changes to it, not making the progress needed of my job. But by taking a quick step away from it, working on that balance of that work balance, it just even interwork, like it's all work, but it's different tasks at work. I can recover my mental abilities enough to be able to work more effectively at the thing I really should be doing and really need to get done, while still doing things that matter towards that job, but are on a different wavelength, as it were. Like, because checking the inventory manually, like being there, checking stuff in the store, figuring out where it is in the store, and looking it over and counting it, works different parts of the brain and everything. Plus, it gets me actually just moving and blood flow in my legs and all that. Compared to sitting in an office, looking at the number on the screen and going, do they actually need this? And yeah, I can't do that with everything, and especially I can't do it with the stores I don't go to, because I do a lot of my work remotely for them, as it were. Like, I downloaded a file and I'm looking at a lot of data points. I have a point of disconnection there between a lot of the other stores other than the one I'm actually stationed at. But I work around that by, talking to the clerks, talking to the managers, or we don't really have, like, they're more, we call them team leads, because that's more like there's less management, because that's generally done by the family, but more they're just helping with some of the day-to-day running of the place, managerial stuff. That if they were going to put stuff down on a resume, they could count as like they worked in a manager like position. But they don't do everything that a manager does at the same time in a lot of other stores. So that's a whole other debate on what counts as manager, what doesn't. Anyway, for my job though, a lot of that stuff counts as team. We call them team leads, and they work on certain subjects in different ways. A lot of ways they're just, it may not necessarily be the same as a manager position in a lot of other places. By the way, George Finder, you may find a few people asking questions over the coming days, months, years. Mayor, you want to get to the point on that one? What would you be talking about? Just tell them that you don't know where I went, only that I went by car. Oh, I'm still telling them you went by boat, and that you went where you did, down the street and whatnot. So, in other words, you are fleeing town because you're getting the fall out of your actions, doing some sketchy business. Got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a point of discretion, and there's a point of there's points of where it's, yeah, there's discretion in a job, but there's also points where it's like, yeah, you're doing dirty junk. You reap what you sow. So if also I ain't going to jail for you, Mayor. So if certain authorities come looking for you, I'll tell them right where you are, because I'm not going to jail for you, covering for you being a sketchy whatever you're doing. Because if it's illegal, it's legal here with that one, and probably harming others. I mean, you've definitely been harming others. There's a reason your place got egged. And yeah, that's a whole other debate, I suppose, in some cases, but deck wall, no. Now it's going to be one of those inside out deals. Why is this pole not coming clean? What am I missing? Oh, an angle. Alright, that pole's probably on the other side first. Alright, well, we'll work on that. Oh, it is on just the inside. Okay, good. That makes my life easier. If I don't have to do the outside and the inside before it counts, good. Yeah. So anyway, my job works with a lot of the same thing each day, every day. And some people would be like, man, I'm just gonna go get a different job. The thing is, I like my job. I like who I work for. I like working for my boss, and I like my position. And I get certain perks out of it. Like, my job isn't one where I get, say, insurance. I don't even really work full time, generally. It's a part-time job. Or generally would be considered part-time in certain conditions. I don't know. It depends on what metric, and the metric shifts around all the time, so I'm not even sure what it counts as anymore. I think on paper it counts as part-time. But in a lot of cases, but depending on who you ask, it's also still full-time. But anyway, I don't get a lot of perks that some big full-time jobs have. I don't get as many hours as some might, but that also means I have time to get other things done in life, which is nice. And I also, I don't get certain perks like some jobs give, like insurance and other things. Honestly, I don't really care about that myself, and it works out fine as is. Once again, I like my job, I like my employer, and I like what I do get out of the deal. Other than my basic pay, if I were to message my boss right now and be like, hey, I'm not going to be in tomorrow because I need to take care of some things, or I got some stuff, my boss would probably be perfectly fine with that. And part of that is because, one, they know I'm going to make sure any important work gets done regardless. Anything that has to be done is going to be handled. Also, they generally respect that, sometimes life happens. And, hey, I need to take care of my family over something. Like, if I was perfectly healthy and able to work, but my family was all sick as could be, and I needed to stay home to help my wife take care of the kids because she's sick too and not feeling good, my boss would be completely understanding of that. And not everyone gets that perk. And a lot of jobs wouldn't. And especially like big corporate jobs that, sure, some of these other jobs would probably pay better, give more hours or something like that, or a salary. But like, I could make more elsewhere for sure. I could get a job somewhere else and get paid more. But I also we live on with some government assistance. Like, we get SNAP to help with the food bills, keep up with everything there. That's the main government assistance we get, is SNAP. I don't probably take advantage of every government program I really could, given everything, given our income level versus number of people, dependents, all that. There's a whole spiel of things there. But Yeah. But I also crunched the numbers, and like, in order to be as well off as we are right now, say if I were to get a different job, like, it was a loose crunchy of the numbers, so there's probably a little margin of error there. But I'm pretty confident there isn't that much of a margin of error. If I were to, in order to be as well off as we are right now, or better, I would need a job that pays probably 80 grand more a year than what I am currently making. And that's just because of, if otherwise, the like, without the assistance program, without, like, with everything else I would need in order to even hold a position like another job. Where is this window frame missing? There we go. All right, and the door frame is now done. That's done. That's done. Okay, I think we're good. Something about that was bothered, but yeah. If I were to, in order to change things up, even if I were to want to, even if I were to want to change up, like, I would have to go for an immense job upgrade, an income upgrade, just to make it worth it. Because if I was making more, I would have to be covering insurance a lot more than I do currently. I'd have to be covering all the food, and I guess that is one other part, other than SNAP, that is one of the other things we get out of government assistance right now because of our low income level that I would otherwise have to be covering or get covering, and that is insurance. And yeah, so maybe I don't get that through my job, but I would not get any better insurance through my job, very likely, than I currently get. And also, I'd have to be paying a lot more, even if I got insurance through work. There's probably something I'd have to be paying, either out of my regular paycheck or through some other setup. It comes out of, it would still be coming out of my pay at some point, and I'd probably have some very large deductible somewhere that would still have me paying something larger than what I currently do. Once again, as I said, I'd have to be making probably 80 grand more than what I'm currently making in order to compensate for for what I'd lose by making more money somewhere else. So that's part of what feeds into me not wanting to change jobs. Also, like I said, I like my job. I like who I work with. I like who I work for. I like what their goals are, and I like what I do. And the perks I get out of that is just be able to just take some time off if I need it, whenever, like, that is a huge thing for me. And so that's why it's so important for me to avoid burnout and to find ways to balance things out in a work-life balance that lets me step back and go, okay, and then not get burned out, but be able to go back to that work and keep going at it. We are 99% cleaned, and I'm still not getting a, oh yeah, here, look at this indicator. Okay, what are we missing? Where are we missing a thing? There must be something somewhere we are missing. The figurehead is still dirty. All right, that's still. Oh, and we're missing some things on the throttle of all things. All right. I don't see it, but all right, there we go. That's done. All right, figurehead, figurehead. Where on this figurehead am I missing something? Probably in the nooks of this hat. This tricorn hat here is, or I think it's called a tricorn hat, is proving interesting. Anyway, yeah, we're getting close to the end here, so I should wrap up my discussion as well. But yeah, work-life balance. That's why a lot of it's important, because sometimes you have to, like, I need to keep a job down. I'm the one paying the bills for the family. I'm the one bringing home the bacon, as it were. And I get help with that in some ways, but as needed. But ultimately, it's still on me. That's what I see. That's done. That's done. That's done. Guild trim done. The fact that this has guild trim is ridiculous already in some ways. Nope, 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 nope. Pull, pull. What am I missing on this thing? Cloning? Alright. Filler. Filler. So yeah, even just with recording, just with my day-to-day job, work-life balance, big deal. And I imagine I'm nowhere near the only person who's kind of like, even if they wanted to change, couldn't, because of what they would lose or what they would need in order to make up for what they would lose. What am I missing? Yeah, I can check it like this. All right. Cabin pillars. Okay, we're missing a pillar somewhere. Cleats? What's a cleat? Gold trim. Rudder. Oh, I missed a part of the rudder. Okay. One of these pillars. This pillar. Aha. Okay, where is it on this pillar? This side? There it is. Aha! On this rudder. On the bottom, of course. So yeah, I hope that my rambling on about things here helps at least one in some way deal with things that you may be struggling with otherwise. Because it's important in life to be able to overcome these challenges. Because sometimes you can't just have a midlife crisis and go join a bike gang. You can't just go change everything in your life sometimes. Where's a cleat? What is a cleat? That. Okay. Must have missed some spot ons. There we go. Any chance you can clean the town's monster truck? Some prized donuts have poured concrete all over it. Some prized donuts have poured concrete all over it. That is a weird sentence. I am not sure I comprehend. Alright. Is he saying like they're special? Like some idiots type thing? Or does he mean something literally that I'm just not getting? Another top job, dirt finder, much obliged. Hopefully there's still enough water left in the river to ride this out of town. Oh, I hope not. That would be even better. Oh, nearly forgot. Should that cursed, ungrateful cat show its face at any point, it's yours. I wash my hands of the thing. And remember what my mama and grandmama before her said. If you can't say anything nice about the mayor, don't say anything at all. Farewell. Alright, so now we've got monster truck cleaning. What is it with this town and cats? Apparently they are very cat-oriented. Huh. Check the shop. Anything? Okay, we can buy more of these. That's great. Let's do that right now. Always better to have those on hand and not need them than to need them and not be able to get them. Also, with the money we have, let's buy that. There we go. Alright, does that mean I have that for this? Yes, good. Okay, progress. I need to get some other things over time, but we're working on it. Okay. Well, anyway, I think I've talked about everything as well as I can. Like I said, I hope I made sense. It's a lot to explain in a lot of ways. It kind of straightforward. A lot of it has to do with reevaluating yourself and working out how to work that in your brain. Just one last example I'll give. Something short, quick here, of in a lot of ways like that. I have a lot of experience in time over time of reworking things in my head. V8 juice, you know, usually a veggie drink. Sometimes they have fruit versions now. I know I've tried them. Anyway, V8 juice, especially the veggie ones, like tomato flavor, whatever. That used to make me gag. I couldn't drink it. It would trigger my gag reflex. Similarly, I looked at it. I evaluated myself with that. Did a deep dive into my own psyche. I was like, why does this trigger a gag reflex? And I was like, okay, because it's tomatoes. Invisible wall. I was so hoping I could explore that. I was like, tomatoes. I don't like tomatoes. I still don't like tomatoes. You're not going to catch me eating tomatoes generally. But, all right. So it's tomatoes. Something to do with the texture, perhaps. Like, I was looking at some of that stuff. I was reevaluating, why does this trigger my gag reflex? And after giving it a lot of thought and considering it, I was able to, through like that whole mind over matter type deal, I was thinking about that sort of stuff as well. I gave it a lot of thought. Whoa, okay, look at that. You see those gnomes in the distance? We're being watched by 2 gnomes now. All right. Huh. 2 gnomes. But I was able to look at myself objectively, take a step back, ask myself, why am I having this issue? I was able to actually cancel out the gag reflex in a way. I was able to look at it and go, this shouldn't be triggering a gag reflex because it's not gross. It's good for me, even in a lot of cases. And it's not that bad. It's like I was able to essentially downplay it in my head to go, like, no, it's not that bad. It's not gross. It's not this. It's not this thing, really. Not really. This is actually good. And provide a little bit of self-hypnosis in a lot of ways is how I was doing that sort of thing. And I was able, and now I can drink V8 juice. I still sometimes stop and go, ugh, a little bit, but no, it doesn't trigger my gag reflex. I can glug a can of that stuff and be good. And so, like, if some of you are like listening to this and going, man, and thinking, man, I can't do that. And I can't break my OCD. I can't overcome my autistic tendencies of wanting to do these things a certain way or whatever, or getting upset over certain things. Like, I used to get, anytime a change of plan occurred, I used to get extremely upset about it. I worked out how to work around that. I recognized why I was getting upset about it. It's like, oh, I wasn't prepared for a change of plans. And that was one of those, my autistic characteristics that really made my life difficult at times. Like, some change of plans would occur and I would be a blubbering mess on the ground. Like, I could not function. It would take a while to process. That was able to get worked around because I reevaluated myself. I looked at it. I went, why does this do this? And I worked out how to counter it. In my case, it was, all right. I look at it instead of, oh yeah, we're doing this. I instead go, we might do this. It's that whole want need thing again. I don't have to do this. We don't have to do this thing that we are planning on. We might do this thing we are planning on. A simple word change is what changed it for me. And Also, I tend to do I like, okay, we might do this, we might do something else, and I'll leave that kind of vague, which helps me compensate for it. I also will like sometimes do multiple plans. I'll be like, okay, if we don't do this, if we don't do plan A, we might do this, plan B, or plan C, and D, etc., and so forth. And that helped me function like a moderately normal human being in most of the time. Most of the time. And so, yeah, I hope that my journey of self-discovery and working out how to overcome my limitations growing up helps you in some way to over. There are way more gnomes there than I thought. I'm pretty sure that's at least 1, 2. That might be 3 gnomes stacked on each other right there. Can I get a look? Can I get? Is there a way I can zoom? Give me a second. If I change up. If I change this to this one, then we get the extra long. Will that work? No, that just ranges. It doesn't actually zoom in. I don't remember if there's a way to zoom. Oh, I forgot I could just change nozzles by scrolling the mouse wheel. Things you forget about. Okay, let's get. Yeah, that is multiple gnomes. I am fairly confident of that. Lots of gnomes watch, yes. Or are they watching the mayor? Oh, that's a whole thing. Are they never watching us specifically? They're watching the town because of what the mayor's doing. Questions, theories, things. All right. Anyway, but yeah. So mind over matter, a little bit of almost self hypnosis, but it's not really self hypnosis. It's more I am learning why my brain does what it does, and then learning how to work around that, to bypass it, to rewire it. And that's how I've overcome a lot of challenges in my life with my daily functionality issues, is looking at myself and asking why, taking the time to introspect into myself and really determine why, and be able to question that. And then, or in the cases where like maybe it's not less of a question of it, but look around, how can I compensate in a way that some people call it maybe masking for autism. For me, it's less masking, I feel, though, because like masking is like you're just putting on a show over that. Now it's like I don't get bothered by change of plans anymore, nearly like I used to, if at all. And that's because I've overcome that thing. Well, that was weird. Got a lot of air there. I overcame that in a way that it prevents it from even being a problem anymore. To where I don't even think about it most of the time. I don't think, oh man, this is gonna make me gag drinking a can of V8 juice. I don't think about it anymore because it no longer does. I've made it so it doesn't. And so I don't have to think about the other steps anymore because I've already put them into action and overcome that. But it requires you to step back and evaluate yourself kind of logically. And like part of the reason I'm good at what I do in my job is because I can think a lot like a computer. How a computer thinks of things. I can think in data points in a lot of ways. And that helps. And some people are going to struggle with that. They're maybe a lot more emotion driven. I'm not super emotion driven in a lot of cases. Hey, I'm still on your property, Mayor. Even after getting rid of the last fleck of stuff on that. Yeah, what are you going to do about it? What do you got back there? Interesting courtyard. Makes me think of Blueprint Spec. Anyway. Alright. I think I have rambled enough. I think I've shared enough stories and anecdotes. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you've been able to bear with me through it in a way to help it make sense for you, and hopefully I haven't been bored out of your mind by my discussion. Because I really hope it will help someone out there who's in a similar boat to what I was growing up. And similar boat. I did not mean to. My bad. Can I? I wish I could activate this. That would be so fun. But yeah, I hope it helps someone. Because some of these things I do hope they help someone. My videos, I hope they help someone get a little more joy out of their day. Even if it is just watching me play a game that they don't have time to play themselves. I hope that they get some joy out of it. And it helps them have a healthier mental state, a healthier day. That's part of the reason I do some of this stuff, besides just the fact that I enjoy it. Anyway. Thanks everyone so much for watching. Comments below. Have you had similar issues in your own life? And how have you worked out how to work around? How have you worked out overcoming your limitations, your weaknesses? And sometimes it's like how painful a process was it? Because sometimes, like the OCD washing my hands thing, for example, that could be almost painful at times for me, because I'd be like, I need to do this. It's like an addictive compulsion. I need to do this. And I had to make myself stop and go, no, I don't need to. I want to, part of me wants to, I'm grossed out because germophobia kicking in a bit, or something perhaps. I touched something else, but I don't need to. Like, how have you overcome that? How was your processing? Have you gone through similar things, or are you struggling with some of those things? And have some of these things helped you, or maybe they haven't helped you? And like, have you found a way that did help you in a way that didn't? Because everyone's a little different. Everyone's brains are a little wired in a different way, and so what works for me may not work for you. But also, what works for me might work for you. Even though your brain's a little wired differently or very similarly, like it might help. Be respectful of everyone else in the comments, please. Thanks for sharing if you do. Hit like and subscribe to keep up with releases if you're new here and haven't done so already. And good night, everyone. Bye.